Picture the Apple logo. Now, without looking it up, tell me, is the bite on the left or the right side? Does it have a stem or is it a leaf? Try another one. Point to the exact location of the nearest fire extinguisher in the building you're in right now, without looking around. You have seen that logo and walked past that extinguisher thousands of times, yet when pressed for the defining details, the memory completely vanishes. Psychologists study this through the lens of metacognition, our internal awareness and assessment of our own cognitive abilities. It dictates how well we think we know something. Our brains play a constant trick on us. They conflate the comfortable feeling of familiarity with actual retained knowledge. We operate under an illusion of competence. We mistakenly assume that repetitive, passive exposure to the world is the same thing as true understanding. When we repeatedly walk past that fire extinguisher, our brain stops noticing it. This biological mechanism, called habituation, allows us to ignore our static surroundings. This diagram illustrates a massive amount of physical, visual data reaching your retina every single second. But as you can see, only a fraction of that data crosses the cognitive filter into conscious memory. The brain aggressively conserves cognitive energy. Unless you are forced to physically interact with an object in your environment, like having to get up and actively search for that fire extinguisher, your mind stops recording the repetitive details. Seeing is merely a passive physical function. Noticing is the active cognitive requirement needed for any memory to be stored. To force that active cognitive work, we often try to batch large amounts of information using rote repetition, arbitrary rhymes, or mnemonics, like naming an element Happy Henry to remember hydrogen. These associative links require significant cognitive effort, but they are ultimately workarounds. They often lead to highly predictable memory errors, like remembering an acquaintance is named Mr. Pastel because it rhymes with his shirt, when his actual name is Castell. You can memorize the entire periodic table using songs and naming tricks and still graduate without understanding the deeper mechanics of chemistry. As this diagram shows, memory is not a passive recording device playing back perfect video files. It is a mental representation your brain actively reconstructs. Because memory is built from scratch, it's highly susceptible to cognitive breakdowns. A child might perfectly memorize a playline, "Cyclone on the way, get in the cellar," only to accidentally warn the audience that a cellar is on the way, so get in the cyclone. Shallow processing strategies rely on arbitrary labels instead of foundational logic. They build a fragile mental architecture that is highly prone to collapse. Let's go back to the Apple logo test to look at an intentional learning strategy called an errorful trial. If you struggle to draw that familiar object from memory without looking at it, you will likely fail to get the features exactly right. That specific failure forces a semantic gap in your brain's knowledge structure. You start questioning what you thought you knew, wondering if the stem points left or right. When you observe the object after that failure, your brain actively corrects the gap. The resulting retention is far superior to simply staring at the logo again. This aligns with the levels of processing theory. Rote memorization of static nouns creates shallow memories, while deep comprehension requires dynamic verbs. Instead of just memorizing a chemical's name, you focus on how it interacts or gives and receives a charge. When meeting someone, you focus on how they made you feel, pushing the data into the deepest layers of memory. A mistake is not a glitch in your cognition. Experiencing a retrieval failure and applying corrective feedback is the essential neurobiological engine of true learning.